morning. I've got 18 minutes. I've got to be very brief. Thank you for inviting me to TED Talk. I'm so delighted to be here. I would like to start off by saying, if you've got any questions for me at the end of this, then please contact me. Contact me through the organization. I run a large social enterprise where we work in organizations, not just schools, but businesses, on innovation and education and what it should look like. Because we have a little issue at the moment. I see there's quite a few people here, look, average age of about 12 years old, young people here. We have an issue with people coming out of university at the moment and out of schools who are brilliantly qualified, totally incompetent. No offense meant, obviously. But the danger is we're having people who have knowledge but can't apply it. And what I'd like to pick up on the themes that have already begun to run through TED is that we have to realize in this century, knowledge in the past was like gold. It gave you power, it gave you influence, it gave you wealth. And now it's like milk. If you don't get rid of it, it's going to be out of date. And I haven't got time to go through. I'm going to share with you a framework for success in education and life. Very simple, very straightforward. But the deal is you can't just take the bits that you like. It comes as a package. Now, the detail in the middle, I haven't got time to go through, but I have given you links to other TED Talks, which I think you should go and have a look at. It will all come clear. But before I start, I'd like to quote this. Now, I read this some years ago when I was around about 20 years old, and I was 50 a few weeks ago. I know that's hard to believe, but I was, in fact, 50 a few years ago. And I read this, and it shifted my thinking in terms of what I was going to do for the next 30 years. And when I was in my early 20s, I set myself a ridiculous goal that I'm pleased to say I achieved 3 weeks ago. So I would like to share that with you now. And I read this. It was from an educationalist. Now, for those of you in the audience who are involved in education, have a think who you think would have said this. Who would have said, rather than force-feeding knowledge from above and making children memorize information, we should focus on sparking an interest in their learning, helping them develop an enthusiasm for their subjects. Now, who do you reckon would have said that? Let's not have a talk. Let's have a conversation. Who do you reckon? Anyone? Do you want to shout out? I'll give you a clue. Let's play a game called Spot the Pedagogue. Who's it? Could have been him. It was the turn of the 19th, 20th century. It could have been him. Okay? He could have said it. She could have said it. Anyone know? Come on. Let's have an interaction. Say again? No. This lady in the hat? No, the one on the left? No. What about him? A bit closer to home? No? What about him? Okay. Round about the turn of the century, 19th, 20th century, something extraordinary happened globally, and they didn't even have TED. Something seemed just to happen, and they said, we cannot treat children like this. It was the outcomes of the Industrial Revolution, where we put children through schools like factories. We still do. Our education model in the West is based upon a factory mentality. Go and have a look at Ken Robinson's TED Talk. Brilliant, brilliant. This is John Dewey, American. Maria Montessori? Yes. Montessori School? Steiner? Yes. Hello? No? Tustin Buddha Makaguchi? Okay, not many people have heard about Makaguchi, but Makaguchi wrote this. And I studied both in the UK and I studied in Japan. And this was you'll notice something similar between all these educationalists. They're around about the same time, different parts of the world, and they had the same idea. And I think we're in the same space at the moment. At the turn of this century, we are at the point of people saying, we cannot do this any longer. I'm convinced that in a few years' time, in the future, maybe even 20 or 30 years, people will look back on this tipping point in education and say, how on earth did we allow so many children to be abused by an education system that treats them like machines? We now have the science to say we can do this different. And the earlier speaker, perfect. I'm already involved in some online education things. We have to have a conversation before I go. So Makaguchi said we have to create value through our education. Value creation education system. This is the early 70s. You'll notice by the trendy book cover. Alvin Toffler, who wrote this in the early 70s, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write. They'll be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Are you educated, or do you just know stuff? Educate. We have the internet now. We don't need your knowledge. Your knowledge is not important. Apply your knowledge, it becomes important. Having knowledge is not. And this is a real shift, particularly for our universities, to have to realize that their knowledge has to be applied. Otherwise, not only is it not particularly good, it's probably stagnant and damaging. Application of knowledge in our society and in our organization. So how do we build an education system that prepares children for this century? Now, Jean-Pierre Leighton said, the key question of the 21st century is not whether you're on the left or on the right, but whether you are open or closed. This applies to nations, firms, institutions, and individuals. To be closed is a simple, perhaps visceral human reaction. To be open is a much greater challenge. I am a practitioner. I do not want, I think TED Talks are brilliant, but if that's all talk, they're not particularly good. TED Talks have to move you to action. So, how open are you? I hope you're playing this at home. Let me see. Guys, could you put your hands on your knees? If your level of openness is like, no, I'm just here to listen, I don't want to do anything. And if you're really open to challenge, to risk, to do something extraordinary, up here. Or are you somewhere in the middle? Ooh, I'm not too sure. Just let me see where the audience is. Please play this at home. It's going to be great fun. Oh, we're fantastic. You should see what's happening in the room. Okay, if you're open, let's put it to the test. Would you like to stand up, please? Oh, I thought it was a talk. It's not a talk. Stand up, please. You can't opt out. We're working as a team. Okay, I'll explain what's happening once I've done it. I need you to work as a group and not as an individual. It is very important. So when I say go, all I want you to do is just to walk on the spot. Yeah, go. And stop. Okay, very good. And go. And stop. You can tell I work with early years children, can't you? And go a bit quicker. And stop. Okay, when I say stop, I mean go. Now, for those of you who are doing this in a second language, this is going to be real. When I say stop, I mean go. When I say go, I mean stop. Okay? Concentrate. Here we go. And go. Fantastic. That's one. Okay, and stop. Stop! Oh, damn. And stop, and go. And go. Go. All the visual learners. Oh, damn. Okay, and stop. And go. And sit down. Oh, fantastic. Now, it was only a game, guys. I've got another 10. Don't clap, I haven't got time. What you just went through I work in the area of brain-based learning, the psychology of learning. And what you just went through was what every child goes through, every learning experience. And some adults grow out of because they grow up. They say, this is where you were at the beginning of that. I'm sitting here, I'm listening to the guys, very good. I'm happy as I am. Yes, you have a bit of that. And then you go, but this is where I want to be. We want to change the world. We want to have, fantastic. And I say, well, let's play a game. What happened to your brain? Well, oh my God, oh, I'm not too sure what's happening, and I feel I'm going to be sick. I'm going to fall over. What then happened was we stood up, and then there was been this state for a lot of you going, I'm really not sure what's happening. This is what children do every day. This is what happens to a child every day. They feel lost. And actually, this is healthy. We have to let children feel lost so that they can discover, so they can engage, so that they do the natural thing that the brain was designed to do, which is to evolve. Not to learn, to evolve. And the learning is part of that. The brain isn't designed to learn, it's designed to survive. And if a child sees something in front of them, as an adult sees something in front, they don't see how it's going to help their survival, they switch off. Yeah? So, then we have a breakthrough. What stops us? What would stop you from leaving this talk, this extraordinary event today, and going and doing something with what you've heard? What stops people from taking action? Fantastic. Fear. Fear. And fear stands for false expectations appearing real. Your brain says, don't do this, you will die. Don't do this, someone will make you look foolish. But as adults, we can select not to engage. We can wire up our brain to say, if I just do this, I'll be fine. And if we have an education system that actually says to the children, if you do this, if you work hard, you get a qualification, you'll be happy. Did they lie to you at school, students? Did they say, if you work hard, you'll be happy? Yeah? Anybody happy? It's not a question of being happy. Work hard, get qualifications, gives you choice. But we have a real issue in Europe. We have a real issue in Europe of children, young people in late teens, early 20s, who've been brilliant all the way through school, realizing they've been told a lie, and in their late teens, early 20s, falling off the edge emotionally, psychologically being damaged, bulimia, self-harming, and suicide. And I would say this is directly linked to an education system that says all you need to do is get a good qualification. It has to be more than that. It has to be more. So, we need more chaos. All you went through there was a little bit of chaos, but good chaos. And chaos, according to T.J. Cartwright, order without predictability. Now, she has never given a TED talk to my knowledge, but I think she should. Margaret Wheatley, extraordinary woman, 20 years ago, wrote this book, Leadership and the New Science. She said, from classical science, our culture has come to believe that small differences average out, that slight variances converge towards a point, and that approximations can give a fairly accurate picture of what might happen. We have these in schools and organizations and governments. They come up with a plan. Here's a plan. In the UK, we have local authorities that have a 5-year plan. How insane. 5 years. You don't know what's going to happen next week, and you've got a 5-year plan. But chaos theory exposes these non-linear dynamics, which in no way resemble the neat charts and figures we've drawn so carefully. What I'm saying, if you've got a plan, rip it up. You've got 3 months. Everything's going to change after that. Have a vision, have a goal, but don't stick to your plan, because that is rigid, and that is not reality. That's just your plan. So, in the butterfly model that we use in schools, and please take this, have it, use it. If you want it, send me an email, I'll send you all the resources. I'll give them you for nothing. I'll put them online. I won't have to email you. The 3 R's, we need to focus on the 3 R's of education. Not reading, writing, arithmetic. The first one is results. It would be naive to go to any school, any teachers, to say, please can we have a lovely creative experience, if it's not going to get some outcomes. I'm absolutely convinced that we need to raise achievement in our schools. Please don't confuse my enthusiasm with naivety. It's not. But we get results through resilience. Do we teach the children to manage change? We have some children who have been so handheld towards their education. They're good at something at school, so all they focus on what they're good at. They don't dip. They don't dip. They don't experience the dip with the consequences I've already said. And therefore, they need to build relationships. How many people here know someone who's academically brilliant but got the personality of a brick? Don't point. That's very rude, people in the audience. This is it. And none are better than the others. They're all equally important. And I know schools that have fantastic results, but they damage their staff. They damage their children. I know businesses that are very resilient. They're very creative, but their results are awful. All 3, all the time. And so the framework looks like this. To get results, we have to have a foundation stone of well-being. Now, if I say any of these squares and you go, oh no, that's just rubbish, fine. But after 30 years, I can say, hand on heart, this works. If you are not focusing on the well-being, that will come back to haunt you. Our well-being has to be both in terms of mind, body, heart, and soul. And I make no apology for this. Linking it with a bit of rigor, and you see this forms a matrix of complexity. The mind can be linked with the IQ, the thinking skills, proper intellectual debate, proper thinking. And that also has to be able to be applied in terms of our practical intelligence. And then, how do we express this in terms of emotional intelligence? And again, please have a look at the Daniel Goleman talk on TED. Extraordinary stuff. All of these, if you looked at it as a matrix, will fit in. And then the final corner has to be spiritual intelligence. Don't confuse spiritual with religious. You can be very spiritual but not religious, and some people are very religious, haven't got a spiritual bone in their body. But this is, for those of you who do psychology, this is Carl Jung's 4 personality types. And back to Makaguchi and Dewey and Steiner, Montessori. And the well-being for along this line is about what do the values look like? What does creativity look like? And what does education actually look like? And you can see, from a values point of view, I would advocate very strongly that the first person you need to value is yourself. I've worked with too many teachers for too long to see the damage they're doing to themselves. And you must value yourself. You are as brilliant as anybody else. And we have these fantastic schools. And I don't think teachers like what's happening in schools, but they're so passionate about supporting the schools. They work for a vocation. It's the last vocation. Education is the last vocation. Medicine isn't, education is. And this is why teachers get pushed to the edge and stretched. And they shouldn't do it anymore. They should say, what about me? And then the creativity, as we've already seen, referred to, creativity works best in groups. Children working collaboratively together, and adults. And education, ultimately, it's about education to see that we are all part of the whole. So that's the butterfly model. That's the framework. And you can take your time and have a look as a little matrix. Where's the IQ? The danger here is some people just like the IQ. They just like thinking, like little lifts going up and down. Some people just like the practical stuff. And some people like the creative. You need all the time. And central to it, my contribution to TED is change. Have the idea, do the talks. That's fantastic, but be prepared to change. Or better still, evolve. So I'd like to finish with a quote that if this man was alive now, he would be brilliant on TED. He'd be absolutely spot on. But he's very dead. This is Lao Tzu, who said, if you keep to one corner and neglect the myriad aspects of the totality, if you take one thing and disregard the rest, then what you attain will be little, and what you master will be shallow. There is one other person missing from the list of those 4 people who also lived and died around about the same time. Who would I say his idea of education went beyond schools but into society. And this man's name was Mahatma Gandhi. And Gandhi said, you must be the change you want to see in the world. And for the past 30 years, when I was as young as you were, I had a belief that I could be the change. And today has convinced me that it was worth the effort. Thank you very much for your time.